is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get
They
woke.
made you be born in a manger. Sweet little holy child.
God bless you. Good morning. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment.
We didn't know.
Top of the hour, as promised, we are joined now by the head of Color of Change, our brother Rashad Robinson. Rashad, good morning, man. How are you?
I'm well. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you, I guess, as well as can be under the circumstances. A lot of news on Facebook just in the past 12 hours. But first of all, the civil rights audit that we are seeing, it's inadequate, is it not?
Inadequate, kind of kind.
Okay.
Kind word. But this is why we demanded that they have to release what they've done up to this point, because we were deeply suspicious as more and more stories had come out and more conversations had been taking place that this civil rights audit that they had been holding out as the thing they were working on wasn't actually moving as quickly and with as much support internally as it needed to. And so what we've gotten them to do is commit to semi-annual updates. And we've made it clear that this update that they just provided yesterday is inadequate. And I will say that when they got on the phone with us before releasing it, they acknowledged that they haven't made as much progress as they would like. They acknowledged that we, would have problems. And so now they've got 6 months. Mm-hmm. And for the next 6 months, we're going to, really lean on them. Sheryl Sandberg has personally said to her employees and to us that civil rights will be a priority for her in 2019. And we're going to see what they're able to accomplish when they make it a priority over these next 6 months. But what they have done so far is not only inadequate, but it does not get to the sort of deep issues that even brought us into this issue in the first place, mm-hmm. which is how Facebook has colluded and worked with law enforcement outside of the judicial and the warrant process.
Tell us a little bit more about that, how they have done that, Rashad.
Yeah, so a couple of things. We got into this when a young woman in Baltimore, Corrine Gaines,
right.
had her Facebook Live turned off during a police interaction. She was having some mental challenges. The police were at her door. She had her Facebook Live on, and it was a bit of a standoff. She was unarmed, and what ended up taking place was that the law enforcement called Facebook and had her Facebook Live turned off, and within minutes of Facebook complying with law enforcement without any due process, any process in place, Corrine Gaines was found dead at the hands of law enforcement, without any video, without any proof of what actually happened, and only now the law enforcement folks' story. And this led us into this issue. But there have been a number of other issues, from the way that local law enforcement have used Facebook to publish mugshots, primarily of Black people. Those mugshots on those pages live forever. It, in so many ways, violates the way that innocent until proven guilty is supposed to work. And there's a whole set of other things around law enforcement that is not addressed in this report at all, as well as I think the inadequate explanation around the election. But overall, from their employee practices to the practices on their platform, there's a lot of work that still has to be done at Facebook, and we're going to continue to press them and hold them accountable, not just directly to Sheryl and leadership there, but also investors, members of Congress, the Federal Trade Commission, all of the sort of agencies and institutions and people that have a stake in ensuring that the most powerful platform that we have in the world, over 2 billion people use Facebook, which is more subscribers than Christianity has. If we are not working to hold this platform that is so powerful in our democracy and in our economy accountable, we're going to have so many problems that we can't even predict over the next several years and beyond.
That's a powerful statement. More subscribers in Christianity. Now, did the audit address the targeting of your organization, Color of Change?
They still have not fully addressed that. While they've, apologized, they have not provided us with all the background. Definers, they're the PR firm that they hire to produce several documents about, various groups, including Color of Change. One of the many documents that Definers created was gotten a hold of by BuzzFeed. And what was, really interesting about that whole process was we had asked Cheryl and Facebook for all the information that Definers had done, and basically got this idea that they were doing their own internal review, that they didn't really have access to this information because they fired Definers. And we pushed back and knew that that wasn't completely true. We leave the meeting, and within about 72 hours, BuzzFeed gets a copy of one of the many memos. And we then get, frantic phone calls from Facebook saying, hey, we do want to share with you one of the memos that we have, that we know BuzzFeed has. And, I let them know that we don't need the memo from you. We actually have a copy of the memo. We've already been asked for comments on that memo. But if you want to give us all the memos, I'm willing to have a conversation. Unfortunately, we do not have all the data that Definers has released, and so they have not adequately addressed that. They have also not adequately dealt with Joel Kaplan, who is in many ways the architect of this idea that conservative bias is the same as civil rights inside of Facebook, which has led to a company that does not have a real rudder. The quick example I'll give on that is in the audit, Facebook takes a lot of credit for having this training of their war room on voter suppression, and they did do that. They did train their folks on voter suppression. They got someone who is well respected in the civil rights, voting rights community, a former leader inside the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the Justice Department. So this was someone that everyone knew. And they brought him out and they had him do the training. And on the same day, they also brought someone in to do a training on voter fraud, which is the Donald Trump conspiracy theory,
right.
That has been debunked over and over again. And I told them, I said, you might as well have had someone come in and do a training on how the world is flat. Like every idea, every concept is not accurate, and this is part of the problem, that because Facebook is so focused on avoiding regulation, on avoiding antitrust, on avoiding the type of accountability that will actually make them a safer platform, that they will get in bed with anyone in order to avoid being held accountable. They will get in bed even with ideas that have been debunked over and over again, and that is why it's so important that we hold them accountable.
Rashad Robinson with us, folks. 12 minutes past the hour. Colorofchange.org. Isn't it also important that in light of that, we can actually say which opinion carried today? The both sidism, voter suppression versus voter fraud, which we know is a false equivalency. There is no voter fraud. But the other side won because Russia was allowed on Facebook to target African Americans. Now, I've not heard about them targeting any other group more than any other specific group more than African Americans on Facebook, Rashad.
Well, in some regards, it should make black activists and black organizers that have been trying to prove to the Democratic Party, prove to the progressive left that black people are the most important political constituency and we need to be invested in. The fact that the Russians do it should speak volumes, and the Russians targeted black people because black people swing elections. But, the other thing about the targeting, and I'm not sure how much your listeners know about this, but there was, this has been recently revealed about some of the ways that they targeted black voters through ads and through creation of Facebook fake Facebook profiles and groups that had names that were similar to Black groups in the United States, but some of the language that was being used on these platforms was language that Black people really don't use, or at least young Black people don't use, and they were posing as sort of young Black activists and using terms like jive turkey. And I kind of laughed because it's a surprise that the Russians knew enough to target Black people. The Russians got information through, and Facebook didn't catch the fact that so much of the cultural references, so much of the targeting made no sense if you actually know Black people.
Right.
And so a bunch of sort of Russian, nationals knew more about Black people than the Facebook employees.
Right.
A company that has not had such a good track record at hiring and retaining Black talent, and that that speaks to as much as Facebook and its employees get credited for being so smart and savvy and innovative in terms of building this platform, it's also just quite interesting at the level of things that they just simply did not know, and their inability to deal with things that seem like something that a first week intern in my office could catch.
Yeah. Because who says jive turkey anymore?
I look. I got some uncles that say jive turkey,
Right,
but they're
right.
not on Facebook.
Right.
And they're certainly not young, activists starting a BLM page
Right.
on Facebook. The fact that this stuff did not trigger anyone at Facebook, the fact that they have no cultural competency in their moderation, the fact that some of these ads and some of these advertisements were paid for in Russian currency, and that raised no red flag. That race was not only weaponized against us in our democracy in this last election, but there were so many signs that it was being done. And because money ruled the day, and safety and and equality and civil rights were not even sort of on the menu at all, you have all these problems. The question is, and the reason why the audit is so important, is because we need a full accounting of what was done. Because without a full accounting, we end up with recommendations around solutions from folks that did not see the problem in the first place. And so I actually need for the full problem, and that's why they brought in outside people, and they brought in people we really respect to do this audit. But they can only do the audit well if the various departments inside of Facebook, the number of verticals, responds to the request, turns over information, does all these things. And that is why we've been so focused on Joel Kaplan, Brett Kavanaugh's best friend, the head of policy at Facebook, who has been an opponent of civil rights his entire career and has been the architect of this idea that conservative bias is the same as civil rights. So you actually have this thing where, so that everything is political. So it's all left and right, not right and wrong. And how this plays itself out is a Kwanzaa Day ad could be political because everything black people's existence is political. Pride celebration ads are political and go through the political lens because just like being LGBT in the world is a political statement, not just who people are. This is when people don't actually understand civil rights, that that there is left and there's right on a wide range of policy issues, and we can debate that, but there's just also right and wrong. And there's just people's own existence and their ability to just show up in the world as their full self. If Facebook counts that as the same as whether or not a conservative can spew out false information about the climate, if that is the same, then that is part of the problem that we've got to deal with on a platform that has grown so quickly but lacks real moral intentions about who they should be and what they should do.
Yeah, that's a good way to express that, Rashad. I'm going to borrow that from you, or steal it rather. Right versus wrong, as
So
opposed to left versus right. Um, and then now we also have heard about their sharing of everyone's information with everybody in the world. The New York Times expose.
yep.
I mean, Facebook has really, when you look at it, become a doggone disaster, man.
It is an absolute disaster, and they've got a model of accountability, right, where Mark Zuckerberg is both the chairperson of the board and the CEO, which corporations this size and this big, like that's a no-no across the board. And there are a number of shareholder resolutions right now to sort of break that up and force some change so that there is not that level of consolidated power, which
Hmm.
makes for real change on the platform incredibly hard. It has to be a shareholder resolution. It will be quite hard because Mark Zuckerberg controls 60% of the shares of Facebook. And but the fact of the matter is this platform has grown so huge. They own so much of our data and personal information. They are selling it and trading on it in ways that are already challenging. The reason why we bring up the issue around law enforcement is because it's particularly troubling because we know that Facebook has already sold information to companies like GeoCities and others, and these companies that are third party distributors of this information to law enforcement. And so we end up in these situations where people are being surveilled, where we have Minority Report kind of activity, like from the movie, where police officers, for instance, in Chicago, because they were able to overlay a map of predictive of crime, showing up at people's houses who had done nothing and saying, "Hey, we're keeping an eye on you." And once you start tracking people, you're going to find something on them, right? And that goes. And I live, uptown in New York, a stone's throw away from Central Harlem, a stone's throw away from Columbia University. No one can tell me that that there's not just as much drugs being done on Columbia University's campus as there are in Central Harlem. But we know who gets tracked, we know who gets policed, we know who gets arrested, and
Right.
all of that. And so the fact of the matter is because that's who's being tracked, that's who's seen who's not powerful.
Yeah.
And so being able to put that type of policing, that type of broken windows policing on steroids because our personal data is being sold
Hmm.
and put in the hands of law enforcement who have terrible incentive structures about what they're expected to do and who they're expected and what safety and justice looks like. There are so many of these issues around data, around um, um, banking, housing, all these issues that this platform has to deal with. And so we've been, for the last 3 years, really pushing to hold them accountable, sitting across the table from them over 20 meetings. And that was why when the news came out that they were, instead of dealing with all these problems that continue to come out as late as yesterday in the New York Times, instead of dealing with those problems, they had hired a PR firm to attack and discredit us because
Right.
attacking and
Right.
discrediting us was easier than actually them dealing with the issues on their platform.
Indeed. Rashad Robinson with us. Rashad, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I'm sorry, but can you stick around for a few minutes? Are you okay with that?
Sure.
I want to. Derek Johnson is catching a flight, and he's a president of NAACP. I want to go ahead and bring him on and get you all on together because Derek and the NAA have called for this log out Facebook. And these are two of our most esteemed leaders in the civil rights community. Rashad Robinson of Color Change, Derek Johnson, President of NAACP. Derek, good morning to you. You're on with Rashad. How are you, my brother?
Good morning, Mark. How you doing, Rashad?
Good morning. Good morning.
So now, Derek, what's your reaction? We've heard from Rashad. We've heard from about this civil rights audit that his organization called for. You've called for the log out for at least a week. What's the NAACP's reaction to this audit?
Well, I think is a good document that's been written up by individuals who we know. The question is whether or not it's going to be taken seriously enough to get implemented. When I talked to Sheryl Sandberg, I made it clear from our vantage point to initiate a process is great. To implement the process is what's important. And now, if they're serious, they will elevate the outcome of this audit and put it in the C-suite and not bury it 3 levels down. So we're in the wait-and-see mode. The actual recommendations in the audit, we can debate whether they should be stronger, whatever the case may be, but the true test for us right now is, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to adopt the recommendations? Are they going to address some of the persistent problems that have been identified from the data breach conversation, the targeting of African Americans, the question around their corporate diversity, and the usage of their platform? Those are all things that are still outstanding. Until those questions are answered, we see Facebook as a problem.
Yeah, it continues to be. So what is the NAACP's plan? Is the NAACP? People asked to log out yesterday, but obviously NAACP and others are going to extend this tour for a week. Are you suggesting that the log out go beyond this week, or what, Derek?
Yeah. So for us, our goal was to force the question, raise the aspect of the conversation. What we noticed in terms of Facebook is they had a pattern of deny and delay. And out of that pattern, they never got to the substance of the questions that many people, including Color Change, were raising in terms of integrity of the data. And that's not acceptable, especially when their platform was used by a foreign nation to sow seeds of racial hatred that germinated during the 2016 presidential election.
Mm-hmm,
That's not acceptable.
Okay.
And so our goal with this was to elevate the conversation, put a different level of pressure, and then see how they react.
So, folks, we got 2 of our finest civil rights organizations on the line. Rashad, back to you. You know what the NAACP is called for. Where is Color of Change? Because I think people are looking for some direction now. Do we stay on Facebook? I think what Derek has suggested is a good start, and I'm doing it. We ain't been on with folks. We're streaming on Twitter and YouTube. We're not streaming on Facebook at all this week on this show because of what the NAACP has called for. What are your thoughts about this, Rashad? And what should the average African American listener? They say, well, what should I do? Should I stay on Facebook at all?
So I want to first say that I think that NAACP helping to raise the attention and the visibility of this issue through the logout is really important. And more people locking out and knowing and doing it as statements to educate and help people engage is incredibly important. So I want to first say that I think it's a really good thing. I do think that there's a number of things that people can do and should be doing. And some things that we're going to be really directing people at doing is that as this new Democratic Congress comes into place, we're going to be calling on for real investigations at Facebook and going to be urging people to join us in that push. One thing that's really important is that there's a set of rules and regulations at the congressional level and at the Federal Trade Commission level that actually have to be changed. We are no longer in a place where we can just simply say that, that Mark and Cheryl say they've changed things and
Right.
then sort of walk away because they keep proving themselves to either A, not fully have grasp of the problem because everything is so big, or to tell us that things are changing when they're not. The one thing I want to say about what's happened with the audit up to this point that I think is just really important for your listeners to understand is that what was released yesterday is just an update. This is probably 1/5 or 1/6 of what they're committed to have to actually delve into. And that is why the audit was so disappointing to us, because we had just hoped and expected that they would be further along, while having a lot of skepticism because we knew that much of the stuff was going through Joel Kaplan, who is, a deep opponent of civil rights as the head of policy there, and we knew that he was slow walking and stalling and adding conservative bias to things. But we had hoped that Facebook would be further along. We knew that we would never know if we didn't force them to actually have to go public with where their progress was. This is why they have committed to semi-annual updates. So the next update will be June 1st and December 1st, and those updates will come to give us a sense of what the progress to date has been, both in terms of sort of really evaluating the problem, and then to Derek's really important point of the implementation, which we have made really clear demands around ensuring C-suite level accountability at Facebook for ensuring that these problems actually get implemented across a wide range of verticals with people and leaders who clearly don't understand race and get civil rights. As per what we developed in terms of how Russia knew more about black people than Facebook, and Russia doesn't know black people that well.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, so now let me just to wrap this up, folks. 1:30. The NAACP is asking us to log out. They asked us to log out for 1 day, but for those who can, who have the strength to do it for a week, from the 18th through the 25th. Correct, Derek?
Absolutely.
And that's Facebook and
out.
Instagram, because Facebook owns Instagram. Go ahead, Derek.
And they own Instagram and WhatsApp. We're saying log out. It is a sign of protest, so we can raise the conversation and force the issue. They have, for going on 2 years now, delayed and denied any culpability in terms of how they allowed their platform to be used. We now know that was false.
Right.
The decision makers within the corporate structure lack the necessary diversity. They have partnered with conservative firms to target black organizations. None of that is acceptable. And the best outcome as it relates to this issue was the November election. Now we have a House congressional makeup that can also require some hearings to determine whether or not they are upholding a level of privacy that all citizens, but especially African Americans, should expect.
Now, so that's the NAACP's call to action. Call of Change's specific call to action, Rashad. You all have heard Rashad mention No Good Joel Kaplan several times. Call of Change is demanding that people sign on and send letters and petitions to Facebook. You can go to act.callofchange.org to force Facebook to get rid of Joel Kaplan. Correct, Rashad?
Yep. And that's one of the many avenues. If we're going to be rolling out some things with a set of investors over the next couple of weeks that we have been organizing, who own shares of Facebook, and will be speaking out and pressing shareholder resolutions. We've been working with the FTC, and we'll be having some demands coming out around that, and then, of course, Congress. We do believe that we have to tackle this conservative bias, and we have to hold that that concept of conservative bias inside of Facebook that has been weaponized against civil rights. We have to hold folks accountable for that, and continue to ensure that they answer for this person that they have elevated, and make a long-term statement that if they choose to keep Joe Kaplan there, and the progress on civil rights continues to look the way it looks, that this is a choice then that they have made to slow walk it and not do everything that they can. And so we've got a set of demands, and we're working and moving this forward. And we think that the more people that know about these problems, educated about them, and are able to take action, and that's why I think the NAACP giving people an opportunity to be collectively engaged around logging out is one of the many important things folks can do so that more people understand what's at stake. This can feel like a game. Facebook can feel like, it's just a kind of a benign platform.
Mm-hmm.
But the power they have over journalism and information and news, over our voice and democracy, to force the type of rule change that will make for a platform that actually addresses and deals with safety and civil rights.
Well, you know, gentlemen, they're scared because I logged off at 10 p.m. Eastern Monday night, told everybody else to log off. At 9 a.m. yesterday morning, as soon as I went off there, I got a notification. Hey, you haven't engaged, make it plain. You haven't engaged with your followers much. Why don't you come on back and post something? I hadn't been off 12 hours yet. All right. And I've never gotten that message before. so, you know, they're worried about it. Gentlemen, we also don't know, and in terms of this data breach, and this affects everyone, they gave information to Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, and Spotify, all our personal information, private messages, which is horrible. You know, Derek, we still can't be certain yet. We don't know yet whether those private messages and user friend information that was given away was not disproportionately from black Facebook users. That could have been the case. We don't know yet, do we?
But just the fact they gave anybody's information away is a problem.
Right.
And we know the lack of care and concern they have for African American community it could be even heightened. You know, the fear that many people express as we begin to migrate into this data reality was the control of data and how data will be used for good, but how data could be used for bad.
Yeah.
And George Orwell's book, 1984, in many ways is speaking to this time. We have to be careful what Big Brother's interest is and how Big Brothers will use that interest for good and how Big Brother will use that interest against us.
Yeah.
So there needs to be heightened standards, particularly when you come to companies like Facebook, which for all intents and purposes have become a monopoly. And for African Americans, we over-index the usage of that platform.
Right.
We all should be up in arms across communities, but especially African Americans.
Well,
and you know that's
please.
so important. And the other thing I will say is that this just has worldwide implications.
Mm-hmm.
There are like countries where it's illegal to to speak out certain ways if you're a woman or if you're Muslim or if you're LGBT. There's communities where it's unsafe to be black or brown. There's like and Facebook at many times is a bastion for people, a place where people could go and like reach other people like them. And the fact that data is being sold and traded is not just like a privacy issue where we're like, oh, now they have my like information. Literally, this is making people unsafe worldwide. It has real potential to stifle people's self-determination.
Yeah. Well, and it's also a challenge and an exercise for us as African Americans in terms of our level of discipline, our commitment to struggle. If those of you who may be having a hard time dealing with this or logging off or whatever, then that's not good, because we shouldn't be so caught up and so addicted to something. And now that we know they gave everybody's information away, no one should be that addicted to something that we can't step away from it. And then to really hone in, as Color of Change is, as NAACP is asking us to log out, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. Color of Change is specifically at this moment, and there'll be more demands from them saying Joel Kaplan has got to go. This false equivalency between the African-American culture and African-American reality and conservative values, including assisting. I would stipulate, they would have to stipulate for me that a lot of that information about our community was given up disproportionately because, as you said, Rashad, because of their relationship with law enforcement. So we should probably just hypothesize that they gave a lot of that information up, a lot of our information up. Right, Rashad?
Absolutely. And black people over-index on Facebook. And so because we over-index on Facebook, if they were just giving out information sort of evenly across Facebook, they would have disproportionately impacted black people in terms of total population because we're just on the platform at higher numbers. But the relationship to law enforcement, the relationship to consumerism, and some of the things with the algorithms that are also part of our demand demands around civil rights. And I want to echo what something Derek said earlier about the people that were hired to do the audit. They are folks that we have deep respect for, and folks who Facebook hired the right people. And when we actually made the demand for the civil rights audit, we put Laura Worth Murphy's name forward.
Murphy, yeah.
One of the people that they hired. And so this is about an organization and institution unlocking all the doors so good people can actually do all the checking and looking that is necessary. What I will say is, all of this about sort of both law enforcement and consumerism is that the algorithms and the data allow for people to have different experiences with those in power. And that's part of the violation of civil rights. And what I mean by that is that you can market housing just to white people on the platform. You can say, we've got these coupons for that, for $10 off to come into a store, and we're only going to market it towards this particular people because that's who we want in our store. And we've already seen some of those things happen because the algorithms and the way in which the ads are approved allows for that type of marketing. Innovation that has the potential to move us into the future, actually dragging us into a past without civil rights.
Yeah. It's something else.
And let's be clear that there is a pending lawsuit dealing with discriminatory practices in terms of housing using Facebook too to screen out black applicants. And that lawsuit is already pending. So what Rashad just said is not a hypothetical. It is a real problem that we currently see, and that's another issue. Facebook have a few of these lawsuits that they need to settle and actually put in parameters so discrimination cannot be a mainstay on their platform.
Yeah. Derek Johnson, President of NAACP. Derek, I know you got to get on a plane. Again, the NAACP calling for the log out, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, really stressing yesterday. But Derek, as we said, those who have the discipline, you're asking to continue to do it with the NAACP through Christmas Day, correct?
Through Christmas Day. I mean, we were real excited to see there were several large Facebook users and companies like Ben & Jerry's who joined in the campaign, and Schumer. So for us, it was really raising the specter of the conversation so we can force the question around implementing real change and not slow walking this process through denying and delaying. And that's what we've seen over the last 2 years, deny and delay. But now is the time to fix and remedy and address past practices.
Yeah.
We can't accept anything less.
And Color of Change, which Facebook directly targeted. And let me just say, those of you watching on Twitter and YouTube, we have the Ben & Jerry's tweet up. For 109 years, NAACP has fought for justice and fairness. We stand in solidarity with his values and will log out Facebook. Act.colorofchange.org. Rashad is going to stay on top of them. Again, Facebook particularly targeted Color of Change in terms of it holding it accountable and had opposition research done against it, the definers and all that. So we're going to stay on top of this. We look forward to the guidance and direction. These are two of our strongest. The NAACP, of course, our oldest. And the Color of Change, one of our newest, but in a short time, one of our most effective, mastering social media and the imprint that African Americans have on social media. I want to thank you both. We were going to do you both separately, but I thought about it. I wanted to get you two on together because I think people want to hear from both of you, hear some direction, hear that we can all, work together and get this done. Both of you mentioned Laura Murphy, who Facebook brought in at your suggestion. Rashad, a lot of respect for her. So, folks, keep up with this, NAACP.org or at NAACP on Twitter. Derek NAACP, one word. I think Derek NAACP might be tweeting more than NAACP is these days. My man's rolling. And then Color of Change on Twitter, Rashad Robinson on Twitter. Deal with Twitter for now as your social medium for more information on this. And folks, try to stay off of Facebook if you can, at least until Christmas Day. I want to thank both of my very, very special guests. Rashad, my brother, thank you always, man. We're here for you, okay?
Appreciate you always, and thank you for raising these issues to your audience.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for an assignment. Same with you, Derek. Thank you, my brother.
Take care. Talk to you next week.
All right, safe travels to you, Derek. All right, folks. So you all we've got our marching orders. Go do that petition, act.colorofchange.org. Get rid of no good Joel Kaplan. Log out. Are you so enslaved mentally that you can't log out of Facebook until Christmas? Now, I'm off. I'm just gonna do it. Knowing too, let me just say it. It was hard about it for me. My birthday's Friday, and on Facebook, everybody likes to wish you happy birthday. So I'm gonna miss all that. Y'all don't need to wish me no happy birthday on Facebook. Y'all can call into the show or whatever on Friday. Do that. Don't go on Facebook. If you want to wish me a happy birthday, I'm not saying that as an excuse for y'all to call everybody wish me happy birthday. But just don't do it on Facebook. Don't do it because of what they've done. And everybody ought to be upset. Those of us who are African-American ought to be concerned. Those of you who are not African-American, they gave y'all's private messages to Netflix and Spotify without you knowing about it, without your permission. They gave your private information to Microsoft and Amazon. But to my sisters and brothers who are African American, so I think this is a good exercise in our strength. Two other moments in history where Christmas was about resistance. And you heard Rashad say there are more subscribers in Facebook than they are in Christianity. Maybe Islam, I don't know. Too. Judaism also. Harriet Tubman would go on Christmas raids to free slaves. And some folk will be like, well, it's Christmas. No. That is a time to resist. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute. The Montgomery bus boycott started in December. So the holidays coming up, people had to walk. They had to come up with carpools to get domestic workers to work so they could boycott the buses. Okay? Christmas being about the birth of Christ, it is an act of resistance. Jesus was poor, born in a manger, targeted by Herod for death. The same way Facebook is sharing black folks' information, okay, with law enforcement so we can be targeted. Christmas. They had to flee. Jesus' family into Egypt to hide from Herod. They were on their own Underground Railroad, had to flee, had to do their own raid, run and hide, the way Harriet Tubman had to do with slaves during Christmas time. To resist, to go underground, Montgomery bus boycott, all of these things, this is all in the spirit of Christmas. So this is a challenge to some of us. Oh, Lord, Christmas, I got to be on Facebook. And we become so dependent. Pick up the phone. Text. Go and see someone in person. Don't give Facebook all of that power. Take it away. I'm going to do it. You should do it too. And I know it's tough, but we got to have the strength to do it. We really ought to do that. Resist it. 866-99-Series. We'll take a break, and we'll come back, get some of your reactions. Log out Facebook. Log out Instagram. And then, as I said, go on colorofchange.org And you can see the petition. Facebook, make amends for your racism, voter suppression, and smear campaigns. How did the Russians end up just targeting us and then doing it on Facebook? Huh? 866-997-4748. All right. Don't go away. Sirius XM Progress 127. Resistance Radio. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. Get ready to resist. This is MIP.